To je pro tebe.
Opravdu? Jiří, ale víš, že je to u tebe pozornost?
Ano, je.
Překvapení?
Dalo by se to tak říct.
Jiří, víš, že jsem dojel?
Ano, vím.
Mohu?
Musíš.
Já jsem tak napjatý.
Ano, si.
Tak to jsi nemusel.
Taková malá pozornost.
Dobrý večer. Vítám vás na už posledním večeru měsíce autorského čtení. Dneska tu přivítáme Williama Letforda, skotského básníka, který je absolvent tvůrčího psaní na Univerzitě v Glasgow a byl oceněn cenou pro nového spisovatele Scottish Book Trust. Také získal cestovní stipendium Edwina Morgana a mohl strávit tak 3 měsíce v severní Itálii, kdy pomáhal rekonstruovat, restaurovat středověkou vesnici. Jeho první sbírka básní Bevel vyšla v roce 2012 a po dobu posledních 2 let už se živí svými básněmi, ale předtím pracoval asi zhruba od 15 let jako pokrývač střech.
Hi there. Thank you very much for coming out to listen to this evening. I'm heard I'm the last act of a month-long festival, so it's a pleasure to entertain you as the very last speaker. And it's also a pleasure. Stop.
Dobrý večer a děkuji vám, že jste přišli. Slyšel jsem, že jsem posledním básníkem, kterého tu uvidíte, takže je mi potěšením být tím posledním, kdo vás bude tady bavit.
Yeah, and it's also a pleasure to have my words coming out of such a beautiful person. Come on.
Je mi ctí, že bude mluvit tak krásná osoba. Má slova budou vycházet z jejich úst.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to start with the poems now.
Teď přijdou básně.
This is called Waking for Work in the Winter. Even when frost hasn't left the hard ground rutted by the wheels of tractors, even though tail lights clog the motorway, even though the moon still stands blind and cold in the morning sky, even though the sheets are clean and the covers are warm and the person beside you breathes the rise and fall of somewhere deep, get up, like the dog that hears a sound in the dark. Get up. Please do not clap between every poem. There are a lot of poems and I have a rhythm and you'll muck it up and just save it all up to the end and go ballistic.
Netleskejte prosím mezi básněmi, mám rytmus svůj určitý.
Be prepared. Wear 3 t-shirts and 1 hooded top. Layers are important. They can always come off. Remember your oilskins. It's always raining somewhere. Wear a scarf. Cold air moves down from the neck. Wear gloves. They're useless when wet, but handy if you hit the wrong nail. Pay attention to the moment. The way water drips. The way a spider scuttles. Have a healthy fear of heights. When working from a ladder, know which way to fall. Railings and slabs are unforgiving. Flower beds and fuchsia bushes are better. Practice your scream. When you strike your thumb with the hammer, don't squeal. Roar like a lion. When the pain subsides and you look around, you'll know exactly what I mean. Acknowledge the moon. It was part of the earth once. Its loneliness can make you feel beautiful. Lift properly, because you'll need your back to make your money. For the spirit. Often, over dinner, or during parties, or post-reading, someone will say, "Winter on the roofs must be hard." I'll reply, "Yes." Then discuss. Cracked lips, cold slates, wet gloves. But really, summer is too easy. It's all about t-shirts and sunlight in the room before you wake up. In winter, I fight 15 battles from my duvet to the front door and win. So keep your tan skin. Give me frost on the fence wire. And January. For the journey. When they told him who was beneath the boulder, he didn't say a word, just placed his forehead against it. Then one hand, then two, then set his shoulder to work. None of the men had seen someone so desperate, so methodical. The lamps on their helmets brightened his back that shifted and bucked, but wouldn't buckle. They watched as his boots dug troughs in the dirt. Whenever he tired, there'd be silence. Then 3 deep breaths, and he would go again. "We should stop him," said one man. "Leave him," said another, "or else he'll never know he couldn't lift it." We are. Geep me an eeny meeny macraca I do manaka sugar a lot of pop and take a your head. Oh here we laugh. I'll just say aye we then keep pinky pie. Skiddly widdly waddly wee rigadigadoo and away you go. We are inside the kick and crunch of colour, where autumn's taken its dagger and opened up a vein so the pavements aren't so grey, our heartbeats are not so bleak, and this kiss means more than warmth and blood. You'll probably notice that the beginning of that poem was different to the poem that's up above you, but I just thought that whoever had to translate that would probably end up with their brain falling out of their ears. Oh, do you have to translate it?
Možná jste si všimli, že začátek básně byl trochu jiný, než to, co tam vidíte přeložené, ale když jsem posílal ten text, tak jsem si říkal, že kdyby to měl někdo překládat, tak by jim z toho asi vytekl mozek ušima.
Thank you. The interview. A middle management centaur, half man, half desk. Collars for shoulders, buttons for nipples, lips like a paperclip. "So," he says, in a flat, wooden tone, "what are your positive attributes?" I only have one, so I tell him the truth. I say, I'm greedy. Gluttony is my positive attribute. I want everything, and I don't mean the money you're offering. Capital is desire for the deluded. I want loneliness, because loneliness is beautiful. I want love, because love is pain, and pain is essential. I want fear. Fear is fact. I want all the lust life can muster. Lust is the push. My mother pushed. Normal doesn't exist, so give me madness. I want it all, the whole lot, no holding back. And as an afterthought, go fuck yourself. Naked. if I could give someone a gift, it would be the ability to look through time and see you as I see you now, naked and full of adventure. The gift is impossible. But know this, I see you. Yeah. Don't worry about your phone going off. At least it wasn't Bon Jovi.
Aspoň tady nehraje Bon Jovi.
Sadness. The sadness inside him went deep. The vast distances between every nucleus and every electron in his body was a well that could never be filled. Beauty entered and was lost. Wonder entered and was lost. People were drawn to him because they fell, and the feeling of falling was like flying. His eyes were pathways to forever, and everyone who loved him was lost. His death was a doorway being closed, and the world became smaller for him. By the time we met, candlelight was kind to her. Her fork seemed weightless, but seldom made the journey upwards. I suspect that she had tasted asparagus before. Conversations clashed around her and dispersed, like circles on the surface of a lake. After the Shiraz, I had courage, and I said, "You must have been something when you were younger." Quiet, so none could overhear, she touched my arm and replied, "We stumble into youth by accident from somewhere else and spend the rest of our lives making our way home." Breakfast in Bayardo. The window to my right is open and filled with mountains that layer the distance until there is almost no room for sky. The key hung by the door has been stretched tight by gravity. Pulled into place, every chair in the room is empty. The sugar bag crackles, and a line along the cooker tells me that the ants are on the march. In the mountains of northern Italy. In the mountains of northern Italy, the chapel on the hill has no roof. For 500 years, its four walls have framed the universe. The locals laugh at the Sistine Chapel and call it the coffin lid. No holding back. Jesus Christ, 10 days in and kicked in the teeth, scraping myself off the flowers. My God, the way she formed the English language and how I enjoyed listening to it. Lord, take back her nakedness. Wash the laughter away. Cleanse me of the dance in the abandoned church, of the movement. Cure me, or leave me with everything. The emptiness most of all. Let nothing fall away. Burn me with memory. Sunburst. 1 astronomical unit, 8 light minutes, 93 million miles. And right here, bare chest top off beneath the sun god Ra. Sweat beads, arms ache, heart pounding, blue sky, aware of my youth. Aware of my strength above the noise of the street. A ridge to bed, a tile to repair, and the heat. 1 astronomical unit, 8 light minutes, 93 million miles. And right here, the songs we love. I don't know how many people she'd slept with. It's not often that you do. I had an idea she'd travelled with bands. Bands that had made it big. I'm talking television adverts, stadiums, songs that could penetrate your day while you're buying boxer shorts. But history was present, and I liked that. She'd smile sometimes when one of my friends mentioned this concert or that concert, and I would get jealous. I would imagine groupies, bodies on beds, king-size mattresses that couldn't contain the sex. Her tattoos were names of men. Foreign rivers, she'd say. But you know, I had the feeling she'd lived. I liked that too. I'd often find her cross-legged and drunk in front of a record player, playing record after record, carefully listening to the versions of herself, still alive inside the music. Delight. I keep my red stiletto heels in the freezer. Cooling, frosting, they keep me sane. And after work, I kick off my steel toe-cap boots, roll up my jeans to the knee, and lift those red stilettos from that middle drawer. Smoke tumbles to the kitchen floor, and the cold crack of leather makes the colour all the brighter. How magical to become so tall in my own home, to dance while standing still, to travel without moving. Sex poem number 1. Aye, right, okay, right, okay. Sex poem number 2. Should have called it a night after the second drink, but the primal inside me had to follow it through to sex, and that was just noises in the dark. 2 people rooting around for something beautiful, so we could grind it to dust. Sex poem number 3. Buckles, belts, buttons, clips, jeans, soaks, stretch for the soaks, negotiate the heel, pants, slow for the pants. Then another person's skin, fingertips, fine hair, follicles, then couch to carpet, elbows, knees, focus, acknowledge the clues, quickness of breath, pressure on shoulders, pressure on hips, but don't get distant, smile, make eye contact. Love, if at all possible, love. Let it go. My sphincter pouts like a smoker's lips. I panic for a time. Big wide eyes, tiptoes, then all is lost. And I lumber toward the hostel, like a monkey in the jungle of traffic, stinking, wild and free. Monuments of the mind. 3 men sit at the kitchen table. My grandfather smokes Golden Virginia. Making a roll-up has become his ritual. His fingers help him think. So that's what he does. He teases tobacco from his tin. My father smokes silk cut and has a certain way of holding a cigarette, trapping it at the base of his first 2 fingers and lifting it to his mouth so his hand covers the lower half of his face. I don't smoke, but there is a bowl of soup in front of me. Both men like to see me eat. The room has been stained by 2 lifetimes of tobacco smoke and doesn't physically exist, but it's where I come for advice. In fact, both men no longer exist, but their voices are as familiar as my own feelings. I slam my spoon onto the table. Well, if that's the way it is, then that's the way it is. That's the way it is, says my grandfather. My father nods his head. He says, that is the way it is. Impact theory. It is 4:13 a.m. on New Year's Day 2010. My curtains are half closed. Moonlight shows me the woman sleeping with her back toward me. She has the outlines of stars tattooed onto her spine, each one smaller until the void beneath the duvet makes it difficult to see. Tonight is the first time we've met. With the tips of my fingers, I touch the distance between the first two stars. Then I half that distance, and half it again, and half it again. Because infinity isn't space and time. It's a process. They speak of the gods. He says Hades, and I see Richard wearing his welding mask, kneeling beside a stripped out citron, sparks from his torch lighting one side of the garage wall. She says Zeus, and I see Casey, framed against the sky, bloated and happy, carrying cement across a tiled roof. Taking a headbutt. Your pal ruffled my hat. I said, what? Made the mistake of leaning forward, and that was that. Blood metal darkness and the taste of brass. The bell was rung, and I know I went somewhere, because I had to come back. Sunday, with the television off. I think of the future, my deathbed. I imagine the man I will be. Then I pay that man a visit. Ask him, what would you do? So I leave the car and walk across town, knock on my father's door to say hello and listen to his stories, the ones I've heard before. It's like I've travelled in time. Now he knows that someone is listening. On the way home, the sun falls behind the buildings, and I walk into a supermarket. This is the last poem that I'm going to read, and thank you very much for listening so attentively. Okay. There's one more poem.
You are still going to read it.
Yeah, I'm still going to read it.
Tady to bude teprve poslední báseň, kterou budu číst a co teď přijde. A děkuji vám, že jste teda poslouchali takhle bedlivě.
Okay, so this is called There's Hundreds of Birds on the Roofs, and it's written in Scots, and Barbara had the task of translating it, which must have been very difficult. Okay.
To je poslední. Na střeše jsou vrabců stovky a v originálu je napsaná ve skotštině, v tom Scots, ale prý to muselo být těžké přeložit, ale tak bylo to složité, ale ne tolik.
There's hundreds of birds on the roofs. Here, howl, choof, woof, wee robin, red tit, pigeon, breastay, lovey, dovey, ruffle your feathers, show me your plume. Look at that, Frank, not a look, not a nut. Plod on then, mouldy breated, whoop, whoop. Look at that, fingle, frugal, boogaloo. That's not even a crow, that's a dinosaur. There'll be teeth in that beak, that's for sure. Oh, beady eye, get behind the gable, she's fair, that's social. What a life, Frank, what a life. Feeding on scraps, hunting for crumbs. But listen to this, We're no dodos. We can fly. Forget about the fields, Frank. Look at the sky. Thank you very much for that, and thank you for Barbara. Thank you for that.
sit right here next to you. Tak jo, tak čas na dotazy.
To je přímo výběr tázajících se. Děkuji za možnost první otázky posledního večera, ale nebude ta otázka jenom moje. Já bych se chtěl zeptat, jak se žije básníkovi na volné noze, možná od rána do večera, nebo jak se živí, jestli takhle přednáší z paměti a jezdí po klubech. A otázka od slečny, jste svobodný, ženatý, máte nějaký vztah?
Thank you very much for the honor of the first question of the last evening. So my question would be, how does a freelancing poet, how is it to be one, and what do you spend during your day? That's the first one. How do you spend your day? And the second one is one for the ladies in the audience. Do you have a relationship? Or girlfriend,
yeah, okay.
wife, partner?
So, I was working as a roofer before I was making my living as a poet. So compared to that, I'm having a good time. I get up much later. I don't have to get out in winter. And I just work my way from project to project, and so far it's going okay, but there may be a bad turn and I have to go back on the roofs, and if that happens, I'll be fine with that as well. But I'm enjoying myself and I'm having fun, and that's all you can ask for.
Okay.
Was I going too fast?
No, that's fine. Alright. No, je to mnohem lepší, než když jsem pracoval jako pokrývač střech předtím. A je to jako skvělé, vstávám mnohem později a nemusím chodit ven v zimě, nemusím pracovat v zimě, takže zatím dobrý a užívám si toho. Ale může se stát, že nastane nějaká nečekaná změna, zvrat, a pak se budu muset vrátit na ty střechy, ale i s tím budu spokojený. Relationship.
Yes, the answer to the question is yes.
Ano, odpověď na tuto otázku je ano.
Co se zeptat, co pro vás znamenají vaše vlastní básně?
Right. What do your own poems mean to you?
Okay, good question. So I see it as, because I write about things that happen to me, it's like a record of my life. So it's like a diary, and it's like a trail that I leave behind me that I'll be able to look back on.
To je dobrý dotaz. Píšu o věcech, co se mi staly, a ty vlastně jsou takový záznam, takový deník, který se potom budu moct později přečíst.
Good evening. First question, where you was born? Second, Scottish referendum, and two, how we will vote, if. Third, you and Moravia nation, and fourth, how is it with your former profession? Jestli prostě někdy, to řeknu po našem, jestli někdy spadl ze střechy. Last, your former profession is interesting, because I think because of your former profession, many castles and manor houses and other monuments here are still now here in Moravia. I think maybe not only in Moravia. So my last question to this is, how many poems were written in Scotland, not your poems, but from another people, about your perfect profession, which is so important. It's not irony, which were written about your profession. Thanks.
Thank you.
Skotsko, Morava, jestli někdy spadla teda ze střechy, to už čekat nemusím. A jak to je s jeho profesí, která zachránila spoustu moravských památek, určitě nejenom moravských, že by si zasloužila některý oslavný básně, myšleno neironicky, a kolik takových vlastních prokrývačů bylo ve Skotsku napsaných.
Okay, so I can remind you of my one as
well. Okay, so
place you were born.
It's great that you asked the questions in English, but it's also good that Barbara has written them down, because there were quite a few. And I'll try to answer them as straight to the point as possible. So I was born in Stirling.
Narodil, takže je dobře, že jste se ptal anglicky, ale také dobře, že jsou tady zapsané, protože těch otázek bylo docela hodně. Jo, tak. Takže kde jsem byl narozen? Narodil jsem se ve Stirlingu.
I'm going to vote yes.
Budu hlasovat ano.
And what was this one?
What do you know about the Moravian nation?
I don't know a whole lot about the Moravian nation. I am open to all new learning.
Moc toho o Moravě nevím, moravském národě nevím, ale jsem otevřený všemu, co se můžu naučit.
Okay, I will.
Right, have you ever fell off the roof in your profession?
I've never fallen off the roof. Thank God. Touch wood. Here it was the best.
Díky Bohu jsem nikdy ze střechy nespadl. And yes, if I understood correctly, if you're roofing, if anyone has written poems about that.
If anyone has written poems about
being a roofer.
About being
apart from you.
Apart from me. Not that I have ever come across at all. But I've listened to lots of people tell many strange stories while I've been on the roof. There are many storytellers up there.
Tak nevím o nikom, kdo by napsal básně vyloženě o téhle profesi, ale slyšel jsem hodně různých příběhů. Jako básníci ani tolik ne, ale na střechách žije hodně vypravěčů.
Yeah. Many people with many funny opinions.
Jo, hodně lidí s hodně zvláštními názory. Okay, další dotaz.
You're a very good audience.
To skvělé obecenstvo.
Billy, but I think that your profession as a roofer was responsible for writing all your poetry, or most of them, because you are a working man, and it's very clear from your poetry that you are different from poets in white collars, etc. And that's what I have enjoyed very much, from the very first one, that one has to go to work. So do you think that you would be as good poet as you are now without this experience, 15 years as a roofer? Říkám, že ho to zřejmě velice formovalo, ta profese pokryvače, protože je to jako working man, čili je to pracující chlap, básník, a že teda tím pádem ta profese možná je odpovědná za většinu jeho básní, čili až se ptám na závěr, jestli teda bez toho, že by dělal pokryvače, jestli by byl stejně dobrý básník jako teď.
Jan, can I just get you to clear up that question? Are you asking if being a roofer helped me, or are you asking, am I going to find it more difficult?
No, I mean that after having worked for 15 years as a roofer, it certainly has a big influence on your poetry.
Yes.
Because you are much different than majority of poets I know, because you are a working man, and that's what I like, because I used to be a railroad man also.
Yeah, I really enjoyed working on the roofs, and it was a nice environment to look at the world from. But I think whatever you surround yourself with, it's going to affect your writing if you're looking hard enough. So I'm not working on the roofs anymore, and I'm still writing poems. So hope I haven't lost my muse. I hope I don't have to lay on top of dog kennels in order to write poetry.
And do you have fancy?
Já to jenom přeložím, jo. Rád jsem pracoval jako pokrývač a na střechách bylo to skvělé místo, odkud se člověk může dívat dolů na svět. Ale myslím si, že všechno, co děláte, bude mít nějaký vliv na to, jak budete psát. A už na střechách nepracuji, ale pořád píšu básně, takže doufám, že to neznamená, že bych je za chvilku přestal psát. Doufám, že nestratím že neodejde má můza a že nebudu si muset chodit léhat na psí boudy, abych teda ze sebe něco vyplodil.
Do you go sometimes to perform your poetry for the working man? Jestli někdy jde předvádět, recitovat pro pracující jako?
Yes, I do a lot. It's one of the things I like doing. So, because of the language that I speak, and because of the way I speak in Scotland, I have a certain dialect. It speaks to a certain demographic. A certain demographic of people in Scotland who don't normally listen to poetry. So I get a lot of jobs in working environments where working men, working women go, and I really like that. I really enjoy it.
Ano, hodně. A dělám to velice rád, protože i vlastně řeč, kterou mluvím, mám takový skotský dialekt a ten promlouvá k určitému rozvrstvení obyvatelstva, k určité společenské vrstvě. Takže dost často právě recituji, přináším básně pro pracující muže, pracující ženy. A dělám to rád.
Hi. I'd like to ask about one thing. And since you're not the only person that I would have asked, but you're the last, it has to be you. So, not one, but a few poets, and even I think a prose writer, have actually memorized and recited all of their work here this month by heart. So, you know, if you were the only one, I would ask, how do you do that, and so forth. But, you know, at least 4 Scotsmen did that, or women, but none of the Czechs, okay? So is it something that you're used to doing in Scotland? Is it something that's required? Because, I mean, it must have been some kind of conscious choice. You just didn't wake up one morning and realized you've memorized, you know, your books. So, you know, anything you can comment to clarify this issue. I'll just translate it for, you know. I'll just translate. Rád bych se zeptal na to, jak je možné, nebo jak se to tak stane, že zatímco nikdo z Čechů tady, nebo z českých a slovenských autorů, možná snad na nějakou výjimku jednu báseň, tak nemluvili z hlavy, neměli vlastně své básně memorované, zatímco u Skotů to není poprvé. Už tady bylo minimálně, myslím, že počítám 4 nebo 5 lidí, kteří opravdu, ne teda možná úplně všechno, ale převážně mluvili všechno vlastně z hlavy. I hope that was understandable in both languages.
Yeah, so it's not that usual in Scotland, but I'm sure all over the world there are people that do memorise their stuff. And in answer to the direct question about was it a conscious choice, it wasn't really a conscious choice. I was writing stuff. Do you want to just keep going? So I was writing stuff in my house, and I was young, and I wanted to tell people what I was writing, and I was quite excited about it, and I was quite big-headed, even though it was total shit. And I couldn't take pieces of paper to parties with me, so I started to memorise my stuff, and then I was the person at the party, sitting in the corner, boring somebody to death with what they had written. So by the time it came to do my first public reading, I already had like short stories or poems in my head. So then, when I came to do my first reading, it was already there, and then that's the way I've done it, and that's the way I've continued to do it. So I fell into it by mistake, really.
Tak ve Skotsku to není příliš obvyklé, ale věřím, že na celém světě se najdou lidé, kteří občas teda budou něco říkat z paměti nebo se přednáší své věci z paměti. A u mě to bylo nakonec takové celkem trochu vědomé rozhodnutí, protože jsem prostě psal, byl jsem doma, psal jsem své básně a chtěl jsem je hrozně sdělovat lidem. A byl jsem taky docela namyšlený, i když ty básně jako teda byly dost strašlivé. A nemohl jsem sebou, když jsem někam šel mezi lidi, nemohl jsem sebou brát si kusy papíru. Takže jsem se ty básně začal učit z paměti a pak jsem nakonec byl ten člověk, co na nějaké oslavě nebo párty seděl v rohu a odchytával se lidi a nudil je k smrti svými básněmi. Takže v okamžiku, kdy nastal čas a přišlo mé první čtení, tak jsem své básně už měl všechny v hlavě a potom to už tak dál pokračovalo. Tak jsem k tomu víceméně dospěl omylem. Další dotaz?
To je výborná přihrávka na otázku, jak vlastně probíhají pak ty večery, kterých se zúčastníte, nebo možná na nich i vyděláváte, klubové večery, při kterých přednášíte poezii, jestli to je večer věnovaný jenom poezii, nebo je to součást nějakého dalšího hudebně divadelního aktu. Jak často to míváte? Jezdíte na nějaká turné?
When you do your reading, so if it's, for instance, in a club, so how does it look? Is it a part of something bigger, a festival, or is it just you reading, or do you do tours, maybe? Or is it just poetry mixed with other genres?
There are all different types of readings that I do. So some are mixed with music, so there's music in between. Some have animation behind me. Others are collaborations with musicians or composers. Basically what happens is anything that comes through in my inbox, I say yes. And then figure it out later on, whatever goes on. So I just keep going and doing different stuff and saying yes to as many things as possible, even if it makes me embarrassed.
Jsou to různé druhy těchto čtení. Občas je to třeba společně s nějakou hudbou nebo s hudebním doprovodem, někdy za mě promítají třeba nějaké animace. Často to je třeba o spolupráci s nějakým hudebníkem. A já to dělám tak, že ať už mi v mailu přistane cokoliv, tak vždycky řeknu ano. A pak to teda nějak vyřeším nebo začnu se tím zabývat, až teda, když na to přijde čas. Takže se snažím se účastnit se co nejvíc různých věcí, i když třeba se tam potom cítím trošku, že se tam trošku stydím, ale snažím se to co nejširší.
Can I just continue? So, when I first started writing, and before I had anything published, I stood up on a train carriage from Stirling to Glasgow and introduced myself to the people on the train. And it was early in the morning, and I said, hello, my name's Billy Letford, I'm going to tell you some poems. And it was early in the morning, so when a man stands up on a train and introduces himself, people get a little bit frightened. And then I told the poems, and then it went quite well. But I got confidence from that, probably false confidence. And so on the last train from Glasgow to Stirling, where it's a Saturday night and everybody's been drinking and they call it the steamer, I got up and then I said, my name's Billy Letford and I'm going to tell you some poems. And while I was telling the poems, a woman came out of the toilet and looked at me standing in the aisle telling the poems and said, I can smell shite. And the whole carriage burst out laughing, and there was nothing for me to do except retreat and sit back in the seat. But it was a good learning experience. Yeah.
Tak, když jsem už psal, ale ještě jsem neměl žádné básně publikované, tak jsem jednou například vlezl ráno do vlaku, který jel mezi Stirlingem a Glasgow. Bylo velice brzo ráno. Já jsem vstal, šel jsem do uličky a představil jsem se a řekl jsem, že jsem Billy a budu vám tady číst nějaké básně. A lidi se teda trošku báli, protože to byl ten ranní vlak. A nakonec to dopadlo velice dobře a prostě zvedlo mi to docela sebevědomí. Možná až moc, protože jsem pak se pokusil udělat to samé na posledním vlaku, zase z Glasgow do Stirlingu. Takový ten úplně poslední vlak, co jede, který je plný opilých lidí a vlastně se... What was it that you call it again?
The steamer.
Tak se mu říká steamer. A tak jsem tak jako přednášel básně a najednou přímo vedle mě vylezla ze záchodu nějaká paní, podívala se na mě a prohlásila na celý vlak, cítím tu hovno. A všichni se začali hrozně smát a já jsem jako nemohl dělat nic jiného, než se zase jít sednout na své místo a tak potichu dojet teda do konečné stanice.
Z toho jenom mezi otázka, jak tedy spolupracujete s nakladatelem svým, jestli máte nějakého, který vás nějak vede, nebo vy mu neustále nabízíte, či produkcí, jestli máte producenta.
So do you cooperate, or how do you cooperate if you have one? Is it with a publisher, if you have one, or with a producer maybe?
I have a publisher, yeah, but I don't have an agent. Is that what you mean? Like a producer?
Oh, I think možná jako agent místo toho producenta. Oh yes.
No, I don't have an agent. I only get work through going out and performing and word of mouth.
Tak teda má nakladatele, ale nemá toho agenta žádného. A takže se vlastně jakoby vždycky, když něco dělá, tak je to tak, nebo dává světu o sobě vědět tím, že tam jde ven a přednáší básně a objevuje se tam se venku. Jestli takhle stačí.
I think that poets don't normally make enough money for agents to make any money off. So you know when you're making enough money when the agents come to suck your blood.
Myslím, že většinou básníci nevydělávají dost peněz na to, aby si mohli dovolit ty agenty nebo ty zprostředkovatele. Takže člověk ví, že vydělává dost peněz v okamžiku, kdy mu začnou teda klepat na dveře agenti.
Já bych se chtěla zeptat na tu poslední básničku těch vrabcích, že mám takový dojem, že už to tady někdo četl, jestli to je nějaký skotský národní jazykolam, nebo jako jak to s tím je.
Well, the lady's asking about the last 100 of Birds on the Roof. And she says she has a feeling that it has already been read here at some point. So if it's maybe inspired by a Scottish riddle or tongue twister.
No, well, I hope it's not already been read here.
že doufáš, že tady ještě nepadlo teda.
Yeah, otherwise I'll need to see someone and pay them a visit. No, do you mean like it sounds like you heard it before?
Jako, že myslíš, že tady ta konkrétní báseň, že už to někdy byla? She feels that yes.
I'm going to take it as a compliment and say that perhaps my poem is famous.
Dobře, tak vezmu to jako kompliment, že možná ta báseň je teda slavná, ale že možná jsem to říkal předtím, že se možná bude muset teda jít s někým promluvit. Tak jo, tak jestli to nějak asi pošlete.
Co byste si chtěl mít napsáno na náhrobku?
What would you like as an epitaph, written on your gravestone?
Wow, straight to the point. Yeah, yeah. What would I like as an epitaph on my gravestone? Fucking hell. Can we ask another question and I'll come back to that?
Tak se tomu tak vrátíme, jo, po nějaké další otázce.
Okay.
Good evening.
Hi.
I have no question. I just want to thank you. You are here. You are reading because it's touching my heart. It's beautiful, and I'm a little bit sad I missed first poems. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Tak přeložte se ještě, prosím.
Jasně. Nemám otázky, děkuji, že je tady, že se mi to velice dotýká a mrzí mě, že jsem přišla o ty první básně.
Děkuji.
Excuse me, but how is it with people which speak in Scotland Gaelic? Do you mean that some of them prove to learn Scots?
Sorry, can you say that again?
People which modern language is Gaelic, not English, not Scots. If they prove to learn Scots as their hobby because of their interest. And the second question is Cumbria and Northumbria for people in Scotland. Is it completely? You have completely feelings to this regions or countries as to typical England, or is it for you a little something between England and Scotland now at this time?
I didn't understand the first question.
Jenom krátce, jestli u rodilých mluvčí, jejichž jazykem vlastním je vlastně keltský jazyk ve Skotsku, jestli je tam poptávka učit se skotštinu a jak je to se Skoty, jak vnímají Cumbrii a Northumbrii, jestli to vnímají ty dvě území jako něco mezi Anglií a Skotskem, nebo jako normální čas Anglie.
If they have an interest in learning Scots.
So I think Scots, when we say Scots, it's a spoken language. So normally the people who speak Gaelic will be speaking Scots anyway.
Jo, jasně, takže ta skotština je jako mluvená řeč, takže když jako někdo má mateřský jazyk galštinu, tak tou skotštinou bude časem stejně také mluvit, protože se ji prostě naučí.
Yeah, so normally they have Gaelic as a written language, but they just speak Scots in their own kitchens and own homes.
Takže vlastně galštinou píšou, ale skotštinou mluví i doma, i mezi sebou. Yes, and the second one was what do you think of Cumbria, Northumberland? It's just something between Scotland and England.
Are you trying to incite a battle?
Jestli se tady pokoušíte začít nějaký boj?
No, for me it's a part of England.
Prostě součást Anglie.
Yeah, a beautiful part of England actually. Yeah.
Taky. Takže pro něj Cumbrie je prostě krásná část Anglie. A nevím, kde je ten mikrofon? Tam.
Dobrý večer. Já bych se rád zeptal, jestli skládáte také písňové texty pro nějakou kapelu, jestli třeba v budoucnu budeme moct slyšet nějakou vaši báseň od Franz Ferdinand. A potom mě zajímalo, kde vlastně se zrodí kde se zrodí to rozhodnutí, jestli ta báseň bude v tom skotském dialektu, nebo jestli bude v té pro nás srozumitelné angličtině.
So do you write lyrics as well? Would you like, or maybe if we can in the future hear one of your poems performed by Franz Ferdinand, perhaps?
That would be good. Yeah, that would be excellent. Yeah, but I've written stuff that's been put to music. So I've written words that have been put to music, but I've never written solely a song myself. So I've just, like, people have asked me, I have to write a ballad for a Scottish folk singer that's to be handed in September. So it does get put to music. But I would quite like Franz Ferdinand to do the poems. That would be quite good. If you can put me in touch with them, yeah, that would be great.
Tak bylo by to fajn. A nikdy jsem teda nepsal přímo píseň, prostě některé věci, co jsem napsal básně, tak byly zhudebněné. A nebo mě třeba požádali, teda jednou bych napsal baladu, tak by teďka nějak se s tím mělo dál pracovat. Ale ona ta Franz Ferdinand, proč ne? A když mi na něj dáte kontakt, tak to bude dobré. And there was a
second question.
Yes. Or if you wanted to add something.
I just want to tell the young guy in the front there that my epitaph would be I'm still thinking.
Jo, tak možná odskočíme krátce k tomu epitafu, k tomu náhrobnímu nápisu. Stále ještě přemýšlím, stále o tom přemýšlím, stále přemýšlím. Yes, and the second one, yes, how does the decision come if you're going to write in Scots or English?
The truthful answer is, I don't know. Sometimes I start writing and then it just comes out in like the way I would speak, and then it seems like there's a natural rhythm there, and then it's usually just like it's the rhythm of the poem that takes it, but I don't actually know. I just start writing them, and then sometimes they're Scots and sometimes they're English, and it's very rare that I change one that I've started in English to Scots.
Mm-hmm. Tak tom, jak se vznikne to rozhodnutí, jestli psát ve skočtině nebo v angličtině, tak nevím. Vlastně začnu psát a občas to dopadne tak, jako kdybych mluvil a nevím. A potom píšu a nějak to dopadne. A nikdy se jakoby nerozhoduju se, jestli to předem, jestli to bude ve skočtině nebo v angličtině. A nikdy se nestane, že bych to přepsal z jednoho jazyka do druhého.
Mezi otázka, než se někdo přihlásí.
Tam se někdo hlásil.
A je tam? Perfektní. Výborně. Nebojte se, vždycky je otázka v záloze. Budete-li chvíli přemýšlet, zavolejte zajíček, hned to tam dám.
Já jsem se chtěla zeptat, jestli u té manuální práce k vám přijde báseň, anebo jestli třeba ve volných chvílích skládáte, nebo se někdy jen tak objeví, nebo jak přichází.
The question is if you think of your poems, if they come to you when you're working, like for instance, like doing a manual, something with your hands, or if you compose them in your free time when you're not doing anything.
They come to me when I'm working, yes. So when you're working in a manual job, you don't have to use your mind much. So if I'm just lifting something from one place to the next, it's a bit like taking a long walk, and then walking helps you think. So if your body's just moving, but your mind's free, then it's a good place to be to come up with ideas.
Jo, tak napadají mě, když pracuji. Vlastně, když člověk dělá tu manuální práci, jako toho nemusí moc přemýšlet, nemusí moc používat mozek. A je to podobné, jako když člověk by šel na dlouhou procházku, že prostě jde a něco ho najednou napadne.
And when I was working on the roofs, and you were taking apart old roofs, you would sometimes find pencil marks on the joists, or like measurements, or just like lines. And so when I found that, I thought, what I'm going to do is while we are repairing the roof, I'm going to write poems on the joists so that in 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years' time, because we make really good roofs, so it takes that long for them to degrade, when the workers open up the roof, they'll find a poem inside it, and probably what they'll do is just think, what the fuck is that, and then throw it over their shoulder. But maybe it might affect their day in time to come, but it'd be nice to think of people finding them there.
Tak když jsem pracoval na střechách, tak a sundavali jsme tašky, tak jsme pod nimi na těch trámech nacházeli poznámky psané tuškou, většinou různá čísla nebo třeba rozměry. A co jsem si řekl jsem si, že tam prostě budu psát básně. Takže třeba za 1000, 2000 nebo 3000 let, protože my děláme opravdu dobré střechy, tak někdo je zase roztáhne, sundá ty tašky a uvidí tam tu báseň. A dost pravděpodobně si řekne, jako co to teda sakra je, a tu báseň zahodí přes rameno, ale je možné, že třeba je to na chvilku zaujme a líbí se mi tak jako tak ten představa, že lidé pak ty básně nachází za tak dlouhou dobu.
Děkuju.
básní?
Different. I normally just write them on the spot, and they're very, very short. Usually, what's going around about the area, so that if the person finds them, they can identify like the place. That's what that. And that's it, yeah.
Dobrý večer, já jsem se chtěl zeptat...
Já jenom přeložím tady tu krátkou, pardon. Jo, jen ty krátké básně právě tam píšu na té střeše, tak nejsou podobné tomu, co tady vlastně večer bylo, jsou většinou velice krátké a jsou inspirované bezprostředním okolím. Takže když by je potom někdo našel na tom místě, tak bude moct vidět, co mě inspirovalo okolo, bude k tomu moct vztáhnout i sám sebe. Prosím.
Já jsem se chtěl zeptat, jestli rytmus těch básní se odvíjí od rytmu pokládky na té střeše.
Okay, yes, so the question is whether the rhythm of the poems has anything to do with the rhythm of putting the tiles on the roof?
Maybe there are some that are written like that, but probably not consciously. But I suppose it may affect what I'm doing. Yeah.
Tak možná některé, ale není to jako rozhodně ne vědomě, ale tak předpokládám, že to asi trošku jako má vliv na to, co dělám, co pak píšu.
Dobrý večer, já bych se zeptal, ne, že bych to autorovi přál, ale jestli pokud by ještě někdy dělal manuální práci nějakou, tak jestli by měl nějakou představu, jaká by to měla být ta práce, aby se to nějak pozitivně odzrkadlilo na těch básních dalších.
Well, so I wouldn't wish it onto you to have to work in a manual job again, but in case you do end up, what sort of a manual job would you like to do so that it has a positive impact on your poems?
It wasn't that bad working in a manual job, do you know? It wasn't that bad. But I prefer doing what I love, like, for a living. But so, if I was to go back to doing something, anything that was outside, I could use my body in some way that wasn't going to damage my body, and it would be a kind of mundane process so I could think, and so I could think about the poems when I'm there. You know, something outside. We always used to say that the joiners, do you know what a joiner is? So the joiners would say the roofers were wet workers because they would have to work in the rain. But then we always said that the joiners were dogs because they were always inside in the kennel. So I wouldn't want to be inside, I would have to do something that was outside.
Yeah, but they're the ones who work on joints, right?
They're the ones that work inside the houses.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Takže manuální práce nebyla nějak špatná, ale samozřejmě jako dělám teďka mnohem raději to, jako co mě baví, živím se tím, co mám rád. A kdybych měl dělat ještě něco dalšího v tomhle duchu, tak musí to být venku, musí to být něco, u čeho budu moct používat, vlastně budu pracovat rukama, pracovat tělem. A musí to být manuální práce, taková jako jednotvárná, abych u toho mohl přemýšlet a právě mě mohly napadat ty básně. A hlavně to musí být venku. A často ti tesaři nebo ti, co pracují vlastně na stavbě uvnitř domu, tak vždycky říkali, že pokrývači střech dělají mokrou práci, protože jsme vlastně pořád byli venku, nehledě na počasí. A my jsme jim říkali psy, protože my jsme byli venku a oni byli vevnitř v těch boudách a nikdy z nich nevylezli.
Billy, I have enjoyed very much your poem about a chapel in northern Italy without a roof. Was it constructed that way, this chapel? And
no.
Another question, were some of your poems translated in other languages? Mě se zaujala, ta báseň mě zaujala o kapeli v Itálii bez té střechy, jak to tam přirovnávali potom, že ta Sixtinská kaple jako víko od rakve, čili jestli to opravdu tak bylo postaveno, ta kaple. A pak se ptám ještě, jestli byly nějaké básně přeloženy nebo sbírky do cizích jazyků.
The answer to the first question is the chapel wasn't built that way. There was an earthquake 500 years before, and the roof fell in, and that actually killed everybody that was in the chapel. But it's still a working chapel. There's one alcove where people still go to worship.
Okay. Tak odpověď na první otázku, tak ne, nebyla takhle postavená, měla normálně střechu, ale před 500 lety bylo zemětřesení a ta střecha se zřítila a zabila vlastně docela dost lidí, kteří byli uvnitř. Ale ta kaple stále ještě funguje, tam prostě jeden výklenek, ve kterém se slouží mše.
And the answer to the second question is yes, there's a good number of my poems being translated into Arabic and Kurdish.
A druhá otázka, tak ano, a mnoho mých básní se překládá nebo bylo přeloženo do arabštiny a kurdštiny.
And Czech.
A češtiny. Další dotaz? Kdo? Jo, to za vámi.
Hi. Have you noticed that there is something that somehow blocks your creative process? That there's some, some stimuli that blocks your creative process? Thanks. Jo, přeložit. I'm sorry, to translate it. Jo, jestli je tedy něco, co blokuje jeho kreativní proces, že si toho už všiml, že ví, že toto mu nějak zabraňuje nějak tvořit.
The answer is yes. There are a few things. So sometimes when I read something, it makes me want to write. But sometimes when I read something, it doesn't make me want to write. I just want to read it. So sometimes that's a good thing. I can just read the book that I'm reading without want to write. And lots of things. People that you surround yourself with can block you or can inspire you. And if you're surrounded by the right people, then you become inspired. If you're surrounded by the wrong people, then you become uninspired. I think there's situation in your life can mean that you want to write. Sometimes if you're happy, really happy, or if you're really sad, then both of those inspire you to write, I think. And sometimes if you're just half depressed, then you just don't do anything.
Takže ano, je tam několik věcí. Například občas prostě mám pocit, že nějaký nápad bych mnohem raději četl, což je dobré, když to je třeba kniha, proto si přečtu, ale nemůžu o tom psát nebo nedokážu to dát do slov sám. A pak to jsou také lidé. Někteří, a tak to je tak vždycky, někteří vás velice inspirují, jiní vás naopak odinspirují a úplně vás zablokují. Také to samozřejmě je stav v životě, když je člověk hodně šťastný nebo naopak hodně smutný, tak ho to většinou inspiruje k psaní. A pak tam jsou ty okamžiky těch polovičatých napůl depresí, kdy se nedokážete dokopat k tomu, byste napsali vůbec nic.
Ale já se zeptám, když už Pepa Zajíček tady načal tu otázku, jako jestli má partnerku, tak jestli ji takzvaně zbalil na básně. Nebo na to pokrývačství.
Okay. So we'll go back to the relationship question.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is whether you got your partner or you lured them by through your poems or through the roofing.
Okay, so it was probably not surprisingly through the poems. She was at a poetry reading I was doing in the Andaman Islands, and that's how I met her.
Tak celkem nepřekvapí, jestli to bylo skrz ty básně. Byla na jednom čtení, které když jsem jednou četl, tak jsme se potkali.
Tak, poslední?
Last question.
Poslední otázka, já bych jenom připomenul tu Štěpánovu a chtěl bych vám dát takovou polehčující k tomu, nebo ulehčení, jestli nemáte podobnou báseň, jakou byste si dal na ten náhrobní kámen. Jste ženatý, dělá se u vás něco jako svatební oznámení, napsal jste si tam báseň, nebo napsal byste si, máte nějakou větu, kterou byste si dal do záhlaví svého vztahu?
Oh, right. So it goes back to the epitaph and the relationship, this one. And it's if you are married or if you're planning to get married, so if there is a poem or something that you would sort of put in the heading of the sort of letter of I don't know what's it called actually, if you're getting married and you write a letter. Prosím? Ale to jako, že končící epitaph? Jo, takhle. Like, yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, the epitaph of a relationship, but being meant as a start of the marriage, as an end. If there would be a poem that you would write for the transition between the relationship and marriage.
Yes, I already have a poem for it. I could tell you if you like.
Tak už báseň mám a můžu klidně vám ji říct.
Yeah, so I could take this opportunity to wish us or wish you love and happiness. But you've already got that. No. My wish for you would be the incidental, the ordinary. To know someone by the way their fork moves across a plate. To see the majesty in someone's back, sleeping. My wish for you would be 20,000 mornings climbing out of bed together. My wish for you would be 20,000 sunsets that you can't see because you're sitting in a room talking about nothing in particular. Let the special occasions take care of themselves and learn to recognize the wonder in the everyday. My wish for you would be a life lived together, filled with breakfasts, suppers, spoons and pillows.
Vlastně takový impromptu teda překlad. Rád bych vám přál lásku a štěstí, ale to už máte. Takže mé přání je všechno to obyčejné, všechny obyčejné dny. Přeji vám, abyste toho druhého člověka znali tak dobře, že budete vědět, jak se jeho vidlička pohybuje obvykle po talíři. A přeju vám, abyste viděli ho zády, jak zády otočený k vám spí. A přeji vám 20 000 krásných rán a 20 000 západů slunce, které neuvidíte, protože budete někde uvnitř a budete hovořit s tím člověkem. A slavnostní příležitosti, ty se prostě postarají sami o sebe. Já vám přeju, abyste poznali krásu všedního dne, abyste poznali společný život a abyste poznali spoustu společných snídaní, večeří, lžící a pilulek.
Krásná tečka. Já děkuji moc za krásné čtení. Báře velice děkuji za úžasné tlumočení. A vám všem moc děkuji za to, že jste přišli se rozloučit tady s tou skotskou linií letošního ročníku. A pokud s náma vydržíte ještě na to úplně poslední čtení slovenského autora Petra Pišťánka, tak po jeho skončení vás srdečně zvu na takový malý večírek pohoštění, které jsme potom pro vás připravili dolů ve foyer. Děkuju moc krát.